Good afternoon, this is Empty Pocket Speech. I am Joshua Rash, and today we are going to be talking about categories. Let's get to it. So categories, what are they? A category is a group of things or people, it can really be anything, that share similar characteristics or features. So they are groups of things that are similar in a lot of ways. If we look at a category such as animals, they all share some characteristics, as in they are all living things that can move, that can reproduce. They have, scientific criteria for being part of that category, being part of that group. Categories are a great way for us to be able to define what a thing is. If we don't know a word, we can often associate it by the group that you would find it a part of. For example, if you see a picture of a gazelle and you're not sure what a gazelle is, you probably see a picture up here, you can say it's a type of animal. You're identifying it by the group, by the category, and immediately that's helpful. With kids that have a language disorder, be it a receptive, an understanding, or expressive use of language, if they have an impairment in one of these two areas, they might have a hard time identifying words and knowing which category or group they belong to. So with these kids, we have to teach them what a category is and what words can be found in those different categories. It can be such an awesome tool for teaching kids how to express themselves and to identify words and just to learn groups of words altogether. So part of my role as a therapist is to teach kids how to group these words, how to group these terms by shared characteristics, by these shared features. So by doing this, we do a lot of drill. So what that can entail is just looking at a lot of pictures. So say we pick one day we're going to learn about animals. I have a bunch of different cards that all have photographs of real animals that exist. And we'll go through them, we'll talk about them. You can also, this is a great way to build in field trips. If you're looking at animals, you can go visit your local zoo and just kind of go around and see all of the different amazing animals that exist. And they're all animals, they're all in the same category, but you can talk about how each one is a little bit different, how a lion is different from a giraffe, which is different from a seal. And for kids, that can be really confusing because they look nothing alike, and yet they're still all animals. And it's a really great conversation to have to explain, yes, they're different, but these are some of the ways that they are similar. Another category that I love talking about with my kids and is super important is transportation, or vehicles, ways that we as humans get from one place to another, ways that we travel, ways that we explore and venture. So kids really love talking about this. So a lot of my kiddos really love looking at pictures of vehicles, be it trains, airplanes, trucks, cars, and they get a real kick out of it. So looking at pictures, watching videos, Cars, the movie, all three of them, the first and third are actually the good ones. So you can watch those and talk about how each one of those are a vehicle. They're all forms of transportation, even though they look different from each other. You can expand that category even more by including things like skateboarding, a horse, because you can ride a horse to get from one place to another, motorcycles, helicopters, ships, yachts, canoes, anything along those lines counts as part of that category. So teaching kids, what a category is for, what makes things fall into a category, and then just teaching them all the different things that go into it. There are absolutely tons of different categories out there. We make them for pretty much everything. But some of the really important ones for kids to learn are animals, school items, things that they would put in their backpack or expect to have at their desk, colors, transportation, musical instruments, clothing. All of these are essentials and really important for kids to know, and can be a really good starting point for teaching them what a category is and some of the different things that would fit within that category. Now in speech, we want to make things fun for the students, but also for ourselves. So if you're a parent or a therapist watching this, do your best to be creative, to make learning fun and enjoyable. With categories, there are a lot of different games out there. Scattergories is a very popular one. That's one of my personal favorites, where you roll a die and it kind of tells you a letter, and then by category or by line item you have to write a word that starts with that letter. And then you compare your answers to the other players, and whoever has an original answer that no one else put gets a point. So you're rewarded for originality. That game is excellent. It's tailored a little bit to older kids. So a way that you can kind of adapt this and make it a little bit more simple, a little more kid-friendly, and also free is to adapt the game on your own. So make categories a game where you and maybe your kids pick a letter of the alphabet. Avoid ones like X and Y and Z, because that's just going to lead to frustration and boredom. But pick a letter like A or S or T, or if your kid has another speech sound that they're working on, like use that one to help them both practice their articulation and then also practice this language component. Pick a category, let's say it's animals, and then pick that letter of the alphabet and have each person who is playing think of words, as many words as they can, that start with that letter that are in that category. They have to use their word finding skills to find words that fit that category, and also some of their phonics skills with using letters, and even can be used to support literacy, whether they're writing it out or they're just saying it. For in the car or when you're on the go, one of the ways that you can adapt this game is to simply have each player take a turn. So let's say we do animals and you pick the letter A. Player 1 has to then say a word that starts with A, that's an animal. Let's say they say anteater. Player 2 says ape. Player 3 says aardvark, and so on and so forth. If you get to a point where a player is stuck and they can't think of a word, let's say it takes them 10 seconds and they're still stuck, they can't think of a word, then they're out and the game continues and you find out who is the winner. If you have a child who has a very hard time with word finding skills, you might want to use pictures or something else, something that's a little bit more easy and accessible for them to do. So make sure that whatever activity or game you're doing, it's something that your kid can play and succeed at. Kids don't need to win every time, but they gotta win sometime. That way they have that buy-in of like, oh yeah, this is fun, I want to do this again. If they lose every single time, I guarantee you they will not want to play that game in the future. So let them win occasionally. That way they can feel that success and that opportunity that they are able to win, that they are able to contribute and able to succeed. That's such an important thing for all of us to feel. A great categories activity to do with kids is to find what doesn't belong. So there are a plethora of activities and worksheets online and you can also make your own, where you take pictures and let's say you have 5 pictures all laid out. 4 of them are animals and 1 of them is a helicopter. And you ask your kid, which one does not belong? Your kid then has to figure out, based on those pictures and based on what they know about how things fit together and which ones are similar and which ones are different, to figure out which one shouldn't really be there. This can be a great exercise to do with kids, even ones as young as preschool, to kind of help them piece out and explain and rationalize what belongs together and what doesn't. Headbands is another very popular game, one that I also have in my own speech room when I work on with my kids, where all the players have a band that goes across their forehead and a little picture that sits in front. And everyone goes around and they get to ask questions about trying to figure out who they are, who that card is on their forehead. These questions can be great for kind of figuring out categories. This is not an exhaustive video or coverage of categories. There is so much more out there that we could talk about, but I wanted to just give you a little brief overview of what it is, a couple of ideas on how to work on it at home or in therapy, and hopefully you found this video helpful. And if you did, please comment, like, consider subscribing. Thank you for watching and have a great day.